Dom here from Waro. Just had the opportunity to chat to Danielle from Pocket Gamer and Overlode about games journalism, working in the industry if you're living in Hull, living with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. Obviously, we want to inspire and motivate as many people with disabilities and mental health issues as possible. Danielle is a fantastic person I've known for a very long time, a great motivator and a great success in the games industry. So it was wonderful to sit down and finally sort of catch up with her after so long to sort of see what she's getting up to. And it was one of my favourite interviews of the year for sure. So I hope you guys enjoy it and go and check out Danielle and Danielle's work and show her some love. And yeah, we'll see you really soon. So tell me about tell me about Overload and how that came about and why you wanted to add that to your incredibly busy portfolio of stuff.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. Basically, my long-term friend Harry came to me and he said that he was setting up this site, this at the time unnamed site, with a guy that he works with at the BBC. Okay. Because they wanted to set up kind of an independent outlet that will favour and spotlight kind of rising talent and minorities and people in the space. And he came to me and he was like, we kind of need a third. And Jordan is kind of aware of who you are through the industry and through the circuit. Do you want to get on board? And I kind of wanted to be on board anyway, because I will just stick my fingers in any kind of projects and get my hands on, because I'm just like that. And so I started sort of tapping into what they were doing and figuring out whether, I had the time or whether it was worth investing. And I really liked their concept and what they had going on. They just kind of needed a little bit of guidance, a little bit of a sort of, I've run a website before angle. So I kind of know what I'm doing a little bit more. So we got involved and then we set a launch date and then it all just kind of sped up from there. I think as soon as we announced that we were going to go public with it, we all went, oh shit, we've got to actually make this work now. We've got to launch this. So yeah, I think it was a combination of just creating something a little bit different from my day job, because that's very business orientated, and just setting up a kind of grassroots project with two people that I really like and I think their work is great. And so yeah, it just kind of fell into place as something worth my time.
That's cool. I mean, it looks good. The branding's great. I actually played the Werewolf. There's a new Werewolf game for the PS. I actually played that on the back of briefly checking out a review you guys did. It wasn't my favorite game by any stretch of the imagination, but it was interesting. But yeah, there's some good stuff on there. I mean, what's the plan for the future? I guess obviously branding's there. You've got the background, you've got the reputation. Your friends and colleagues have the reputation. Where do you want to see it go? You mentioned about sort of nurturing new talent, things like that.
Yeah, well, basically we've set this up as kind of a side hustle, I suppose, of sorts, separate from our day jobs, because Harry is a full-time student about to graduate, and obviously me and Jordan work full-time at other places. So it's just right now kind of a side thing. We're funded through Patreon. We've got an incredible amount of support on the Patreon already that we can pay our writers and our commissions with. But I think long term, we would like to see it grow, like to see it flourish into something that will pay us, essentially, because, everyone has to be paid. But yeah, I think it's a weird one, because we kind of had a roadmap for what we wanted to do, but maybe not how to grow it in the situations that we're in now. So over the next maybe year or so, if it grows and we can kind of turn it into something sustainable, which means that we can put more time behind it, I would love to see that happen. Absolutely.
That's amazing. Yeah, I wish you all the best with it, because I think it's a cool idea, and hopefully you can launch the careers of other people and help you develop further. I guess that moves on sort of nicely to my next question. One of the things interesting about you in terms of the games industry, the creative industry, is you've remained in Hull, East Yorkshire for the majority. You've obviously done a lot of traveling when we could travel in the olden times. You've done a lot of traveling and moving around, but you've stayed living in the city of Hull, which is pretty unique in the creative industry. Obviously, I'm not particularly involved in the gaming industry, but I have friends that are. And again, like the music industry, like the media and arts industry, very London centric. Furthest north, where the sector does have a breeding ground, is of course Manchester. So, what made you stay in Hull, and how have you made that work?
I think initially I was incredibly lucky with the position that I got at Steel Media, that I'm still at almost 4 years later, because they were, while the company is technically based in Bath, we have a HQ in Bath. Everyone that works there works remotely. So it really wasn't an issue for me to kind of jump in. And although that did come with a lot of traveling around and going to events and things, I was able to have this quite high profile role and this responsibility from home. And that's something that has obviously stayed with me as the role has progressed and as my career has progressed as well. And that's something that all of us at Overload were very conscious of as well. The whole media and journalism scene being quite tightly rooted to places like London, Bath, Brighton, those kinds of areas where it's, if you want to live there and you want to have a career there, you need to earn a substantial amount of money. And the other two Overload guys are based in Scotland, so we go even more north. We've got two Scottish people, and we've got me in Yorkshire, and we wanted to sort of, become a beacon for people that think that they can only have these high and curate these high profile careers and roles if they go to the locations where this kind of stuff thrives. And we kind of want to say, no, you don't have to do that. You can build this from anywhere. The world is laid out now, so you can, create success for yourself in any capacity. And I think the pandemic has kind of heightened that as well. It's really made, I don't know, I guess normal people kind of see that you can do what you need to do from anywhere. You don't need to be in the right place at the right time. You can just create whatever you want to create from anywhere. We're just in such a great position to be able to do that now. And I admit that I'm very lucky. Not everyone will stumble upon the opportunities that I did, but I think that I've, with my circumstances, been able to make it work, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think it's a testament to your work ethic. I've known you for years, and you've done a bunch of writing. You've even written a couple of things for Soundsphere in the past, which I'm very proud of to have had you in that role. But also just seeing social media and how you interact with other people. It's fantastic to see the work you've done. So congratulations on
Thank you.
that from me to you. It's amazing. Before we talk a little bit about, because the platform I've launched, Waro, is around disability and mental health. So I do want to ask a little bit about your lived experience with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue, if possible. But before we do that, I just wanted to kind of get is there a typical day in your life, and what does that look like? Tell me. I don't think it exists, but I'm making an assumption. I don't think you have a typical day, but tell me if you do. What does a day in the life of Danielle Partis look like?
Certainly in the past year or so, it has looked like a Groundhog Day, actually, waking up doing the same thing. But no, I think I have a full-time day job, so I'm up, 8 or 9 in the morning, and I log in to talk to my team because I have two very lovely full-time staff members, and we set out what we're going to do for the day. And then, my day job is just running PocketGamer.Biz. So I'll be doing anything from interviews and features, kind of deep dives and everything that we do over there. And then I will spend my lunch breaks and my early evenings doing Overload stuff now. So I can see things going on in the chat window while I'm at work, and I have to really segregate myself and I'm not looking at that until I have a gap. I'm just not doing it. And I will, I'll sit and eat a sandwich and go through Overload admin, and then I'll spend a couple of hours in the evening doing that as well. And then my late evening is either spent playing games with friends, catching up on stuff that I've missed, or doing a bit of writing for Overload, because I think that was another reason I was so keen to get involved with it, because I wanted to do more creative writing again outside of the very business focused stuff that I do at work. So I guess that's my day in a nutshell.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds busy. So I like, as long as I've known you as a very busy person. So that's typical. But it sounds like you've got a good team around you, and that sort of importance of social connection, even in
Mm,
the digital realm, is there for you, which is good for me to hear. I like to say, because you get one side of somebody on social media. You make social media look very cool and the gaming industry look very glamorous. But it's nice to know you've got good people around you for sure.
absolutely. Mm,
Yeah. So we work with a lot of young people. Obviously, places like the War on Youth Project,
hmm
and people around sort of on a national scale as well. And one of the things that comes up is people want to work in games journalism, for example. People want to get their foot in the door, so to speak, and they ask you. They look at someone like yourself and they think, oh, Danielle's reached success, that I'm never going to reach. Especially in these times, people are struggling with mental health, they're struggling with self-image. They might look at you and think, I'm never going to get to that point. And they've got this kind of certain view of success. So I wanted
mm.
to ask you, what does success mean to you now? And how has that definition of success changed at all since the start of your career in games journalism?
Um, I think my goalposts have evolved over the years. Obviously, started I started at Team Rock at Metal Hammer, and I was freelancing there for a bit, and then I had a bit of a gap, and then I ended up where I am now, and I have been for 4 years. But I don't think it's ever really sunk in a kind of way, because I'm kind of aware that this is my job, but I still, even now, catch myself like looking around at the things that I do, and even like the apartment that I live in, and that that I'm able to have this kind of life for myself, just with money that I earn from writing. And it's still mind blowing. Like, so many years on, it's crazy, because like 5 years ago, I was that person, kind of struggling with money, struggling with a place to live, completely blindsided as to how I was going to make this career a success. And it was like a massive amount of luck as well. But I think that if you just keep going and you keep taking the creative stuff seriously,
Mm.
then you will eventually make an imprint somehow. Because I had a lot of people around me, sort of in my late teens, that just sort of were kind of a bit mean about me taking this so seriously. Like, I was going to local gigs with my camera and a notepad, and I was taking it really seriously, like reviewing gigs with like 6 people there. And people are like, why are you doing that? Like, you're not getting paid for that. You're not making any kind of imprint. But in my head, I was like, if I want to do this as a job, as a career, you have to take this small stuff seriously. You have to act like everything is serious. Not in a kind of way where you take yourself too seriously and you become a little bit of a wanker about it, but you have to treat everything as a serious task, whether you're reviewing like a local gig down the pub or you're at the O2. It's all the same thing, it's all the same skill set, and as long as you're doing that, you're developing something and you're moving forward with what you want to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. I remember denim and leather very well, and going back to those days, and it's again a testament to your work ethic and sort of drive that you've done so well, in this setting. And like, I've got people, obviously, and friends that work at Team Rock and mutual friends and stuff, and it's just wonderful to see how well you've done and how much of an impact you make on people, which is great. Which brings me nicely to my next question. So you're an influencer in the games industry now, which is cool. But if you would sort of drop tips to somebody, so say somebody else is where you were 5 years ago, or before that, somebody else has started a denim and leather type blog or whatever, and they look up to you and they want to be where you're at. What key tips have you got? And when I say key tips, I don't mean just like, obviously the positive stuff is great, but what do you want to see from somebody, if they want to work with you or work for you, or around you, and what do you not want to see from somebody? Tips on how to get into the the gaming world, games journalism, and basically following your footsteps.
I think the key thing is to keep working, and that can kind of manifest in a couple of formats. I think working on the thing that you want to keep doing is very important. Whether that just be, even if you're just writing on a blog and you're reviewing the games that you that you can get hold of, or reviewing music or whatever, as long as you're doing something that is keeping you developing that particular skill, then that is beneficial to you. And I think it's very easy as well to kind of be so laser focused on this one career path that you are unwilling to explore other opportunities or put your energy into anything else. Because while I was kind of doing all this stuff, especially in the early days of Denim and Leather, I was working like pretty much full time as well. And I think there's a kind of, I don't know what the word is, but people will kind of think, oh, I'm not getting to where I want to be down this road that I'm trying to follow, so it's never going to happen for me. And sometimes you kind of have to switch up your approach a little bit. People will sort of put barriers in front of themselves, because I remember wanting to step into games journalism, but I couldn't afford any kind of consoles. I couldn't afford a PC. So I kind of thought, okay, the step here is to earn enough money so I could get a PC. So you kind of have to think of, you have to get a job, and it's not going to be a job that you want to do particularly. It's not going to be a job immediately in the industry you want to work in, but it's enabling you to get the equipment that you need to keep developing, to keep furthering your skills. And people can kind of sometimes see that as a failure, like, oh, because I remember working in a call center and thinking, oh, this is it for me now, working in a call center. I failed at my path. And it's like, no, it's just another step, isn't it? It's another tool to enable you to get where you want to be if the drive is strong enough. So I think, keep working on your creative skills, but also don't be afraid to kind of divert from the path a little bit and do something that might not be the direction that you're heading in, but it might, even if it's just so you can pay the bills, so you can eat, so you can, have a little bit of money to fuel and buy things that you need to get to further these skills. It's all leading to the same thing if you want it to. Even if it feels like a distraction in the short term, it's all beneficial.
Absolutely. And again, just to, kind of for additional tips, is there anything people should avoid doing? Because again, it's a very glamorous sort of job role, a lot of people, a lot of competition for these kind of roles nationally, locally, whatever. What kind of things have you sort of seen that sort of don't work so well for incoming journalists, young up and comers who want to get these jobs? Because again, some of that stuff tends to get avoided when you sort of have these types of spotlight interviews where we are trying to motivate people, but we're also trying to be real about some of the pitfalls and things that can come up for young people trying to get into these jobs.
One thing I would say is that these industries, the music industry, the games industry, they are all incredibly small. So especially if you're rising and you're coming up, you have to be kind of aware of the reputation that you're creating for yourself. And you can't, be an asshole if things don't go your way, or you kind of are feeling like you're not going to get anywhere with something. Because people will remember that. People will generally remember you as, being an asshole, and opportunities will very quickly close to you. And I think that's something that's super, super prevalent in the age of social media as well, where people will go online and they will create personas for themselves. And that can sometimes be detrimental. Even in a hiring position, I've been in situations and I've seen people that are in positions to make hires, to hire new people, who literally won't hire somebody if they've posted an annoying tweet or something. And I think that's wild, because that, what you say in a personal social media space ideally shouldn't dictate your professionalism and what you can do professionally, unless you're a mad racist or something like that. Then that's off the table. But
way off the table.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think you just kind of have to watch what you're saying in all spaces, and just be kind to people. Literally, I think probably the most opportunities that I've had in my career so far is just by being kind and not thinking that things should be handed to me, but because it's all luck, isn't it? Like, nobody owes you anything in any of these spaces. It's so competitive, it's so saturated, and you just, I think, yeah, just the biggest takeaway is just don't be a dickhead.
Yeah, that's always my, whenever I do like any public speaking or any talks, I'm like, yep, don't be a dick. Like I'm gonna go do a university thing in a couple of days, and I'm always like, they're like, don't swear, and I'm like, well, this is my like, if I could just summarize everything I have to say over half an hour, it would basically be, don't be a dick, and work hard. So like that's what I have to insist now. I'm like, I'm gonna say dick. I'm gonna say that word. Just so you're aware. Don't be a dick. But yeah, so similar vibe there. Yeah, just don't be a dickhead, and work hard, don't be a dick, and it's there and thereabouts for sure. So obviously, again, a couple of questions before we finish. Waro is about mental health and disability. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, but one of the great things about you is obviously you are working in the creative industries. You're an influencer. You're obviously kind to people. You've always been a good person as long as I've known you, and you work really hard. But you also have chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and you have your things that sort of work you're working with alongside your work, so to speak. So can you tell me about your kind of lived experience with those conditions, how they affect you, and sort of how you kind of how you've lived with them, and kind of live with them on a daily basis, if you feel okay to do that?
Absolutely. I think the first thing to highlight about my disabilities, my ailments, is that I'm quite thankful for them, because I was diagnosed with ME and fibromyalgia just before my 21st birthday, which is quite a kind of young age for you to go from, I was going to gigs all the time, and I was really working hard to kind of craft this stuff. But I wasn't really focused either, because I was doing lots of different things on the local scene, and I hadn't really put time into properly cultivating my skills as a writer, in my head anyway. And what getting sick did for me, I mean, in hindsight, it felt worse at the time, but in hindsight, it made me really focus down on like bettering my skills as a writer, because I had nothing else to do. Like, I was housebound and struggling to manage these disabilities, and all I could do was write. That's all I was doing. And in a way, that kind of forced me to take this seriously, to take writing seriously, because I was like, well, this is my strongest skill set. I have to make this work if I'm going to live. And I did, and it obviously paid off. But it's difficult because you, especially with CFS and with ME, it feels like you are working twice as hard as everyone around you to achieve half as much. And I have a really good team that's really understanding of my disabilities, but it can feel like that, and it can also feel sometimes that opportunities are kind of closed off to you because of your disability, and I'm sure that you will relate to that feeling as well. And it's something that I've especially noticed in the games industry as well. Like, a lot of events are really difficult because you're walking around for 8 hours at these conferences, and you're going to these. I remember going to a party that was on like the top floor of a car park, like an abandoned car park, and there wasn't a lift. And I was just sort of like, it's just sort of an oversight on every level, accessibility and like things like that. And it can be difficult to manage, but I feel like I'm in a very privileged position now that people are aware and accommodating of my illnesses, which makes my job a lot easier. And because I'm now in a space where I can be a kind of beacon for people like me. And I feel like it's now my responsibility as someone with a middling amount of power in this space now to help people like me to, get up to this level, to highlight these people, and to kind of say, like, it's okay for you to have these illnesses. You can work with them. They're not going to stifle you, because there are people here now that will help you up, that will help you get to these same heights. And I think that's something that's really important to me, kind of making sure that there is space here now for people like me, not in the way that it was when I was trying to get here.
Absolutely. What wonderful message as well. I think that's one of the things I've kind of learned, is that people make these oversights because they haven't perhaps lived with someone, they haven't got the direct experience of someone with, say, chronic fatigue or cerebral palsy, and they make these decisions when they're booking parties or whatever without thinking, because you're not necessarily around them all the time, or you're not in the face. But the more you go to these things, the more I go out, and the more we interact and mingle and do all that kind of stuff. The more awareness it brings to people, and the more kind of people kind of think subconsciously. I don't know if you agree with me, but yeah, it's like you have to be. I think people have to be aware of your experience by working with you and by speaking to you to be able to understand it. And people can empathize, but in order for them to make a direct kind of decision that can support, they have to have maybe lived with that. Do you know what I mean, or around it? If that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the road to more accessibility, to more inclusion gets better when there's at least one person in a room of decision makers that has experienced or lived with a particular ailment. And that can be, a physical disability, it could be a mental disability, it could be, somebody is a different race. You have rooms of white people making decisions, and it only takes like one person of color in a room to say, actually, this is a bad decision. And it will be the same for me if I'm the only disabled person in a room of these decision makers, and I can say, this is a bad decision because nobody else has been in the position that I'm in. And the more we evolve and the more people are in these rooms saying this is a bad decision, or this is a good decision, and then it becomes easier for people with disabilities, people with mental health issues, minorities to get into these spaces because there are already people like them in the spaces. And we are very, very slowly, I think, breaking down those barriers in gaming, in music, in, all kinds of creative disciplines.
Yeah, fantastic. And again, all power to you for being in that situation and position and helping people out. I think that's a wonderful, thing to share with the world. In the spirit of motivation, and very similar line to one of my earlier questions, in terms of motivation for young people that are struggling with mental health, right now in the pandemic and beyond, and struggling with their self-image in ways that perhaps you and I have experienced in the past. What kind of key tips have you got again for people that are struggling with mental health right now and struggling with a bit of self-belief? Maybe they want to maybe want to take a cue from all you've been able to do and the confidence that you've sort of developed through your career and through your creative endeavors.
Yeah, I think one thing to remember, although it does sound like a platitude, especially when you're in a period of sort of in a depressive state or in a period of bad mental health, is that everything that's happening to you is transient. You won't be in this space forever. And if you have a clear thought process, even if it feels impossible to you at that particular time, as long as you have that kind of goal in mind, your situation will change and evolve over time. Even if it feels like you're kind of helpless, things will always change. Everything is dynamic, and there will be a situation where you won't feel as bad as you are feeling in that situation. And in terms of sort of believing in yourself and the work that you're doing, I remember being in a position where I was sort of writing and nobody cared, nobody was reading it. And I remember when I was about 15, I wanted to write for a local blog. I can't even remember what it was called. And I submitted a review. And whoever ran it got back to me and said, this is fine. I don't think your writing will necessarily make the likes of Metal Hammer, but it passes. And I remember reading that and like getting really sad about it. Like, so it was because somebody who was older than me had just come back to me and said, "You're never going to write for Metal Hammer." And then, like 8 years later, yeah, literally is. And it was a little bit of spite for me. But in those situations, you can just, someone that, that you respect can come back to you and say, "You're not going to make anything of yourself with this nonsense." And it's like, no, I mean, in fact, I will use a Ginger Wildheart quote because he said in a song, "Fuck all the experts with all due respect, because no one's an expert in what's coming next." And I think that's true, because there's so many people out there that think that they know what's going on and what's happening and who the right people are, but nobody knows anything really. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. And, it might be you, it might be you, and you will never see it coming. So just keep working. If you have a dream and you have a goal, just keep working towards it and keep taking it seriously and keep trying.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful words as well. And thanks for the motivation, Daniel. I really appreciate it. Before I'm getting choked up. Before we finish up, obviously we obviously have a background in music, and you also have a background in music. So, do you have a couple, 2 or 3 motivational songs that you use when you are having a bad day, when you need a bit of a pickup, or even when you're feeling great and you want to have a song re-emphasize your awesomeness in that moment? Do you have like 2 or 3 positive playlist songs that you can? I realize I probably put you on the spot, but give me a couple of songs.
Yeah. I've forgotten every band I've ever listened to. So I think a song that I go to quite a lot recently is oh my god, what is the song I've just quoted called?
I'm sorry. When I asked it, I was like, "Oh no, I've put you on the spot."
No, the song I just quoted was "How I Survived the Punk Wars," and it's a song by one of Ginger's side projects, Hey Hello, and it is just like 3 or 4 minutes of him giving advice on how to take your creative endeavor seriously, and there's so much advice in there for me. Which I absolutely love. And a song that I listen to when I want to be in a really good mood instantly is "Wake Me Up Before You Go Go" by Wham.
Classic.
It is just that sort of feel good, happy song that I go to all the time. And it's not very metal of me, but it's great. It's a great song and it makes me happy.
It's a beautiful song, and it makes a lot of people happy. And I'm glad. Thank you very much for sharing your happiness when it comes to Wham with me as well. Again, just to end, have you got anything else? Obviously, we've talked about Overlode, we've talked about Pocket Gamer, obviously your main projects. Is there anything you'd like to say to Overlode's followers or your followers, people that have supported you over the years, and anything you've got coming up that you want to plug?
Yeah, there has been countless people in the past 4 or 5 years that have really looked after me and been so conscientious of my situation when I've been trying to grow my career, and I'm now in a very thankful position where I can help other people, and that's what Overload is about. That's what my whole career is about. I want to help people get up to where I am, because I once felt that it was absolutely pointless even trying, and I just completely disregarded, how can a disabled woman from Hull be like these people that you see, these really successful people, and it's sort of completely passed me by that I am now one of those people. So there's just a huge, wide-armed thank you to people that have supported me over the years. And if I am now in a position where I can help somebody else, don't ever be afraid to reach out to me, because I will try my best to give you some kind of actionable advice to help you, grow the thing that you want to grow.
Wonderful. And I'll post some links to social media where you can reach Danielle and check out Overload and Pocket Gamer as well. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. It's
absolute pleasure.
Bloody lovely to catch up with you as well. And I'll see you on the other side for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. As soon as the pandemic's over, we will get that copper, because we've been saying it for so long.
We've been chasing, yeah.